Good morning, everyone. It is January 20th, and Councilmember Folkerts and I are here this morning to recap the council meeting from January 19th. We had a lot of issues that we discussed last night. I think we disappointed a lot of people in the community, and we're going to recap a little bit and then try to hit on some bright spots coming up in the next few weeks. Lauren, would you like to kick us off with a discussion of probably the most discussed issue last night?
The police oversight panel, regularly needs new members appointed to it. We have the selection committee that is outside of the city council. That it involves members from several nonprofits that represent underrepresented groups in our community. They went through the hard work of diving through the details of a large number of candidates and brought forward some recommendations. In our last meeting, there was some concern from community members, and we asked the Police Oversight Committee to reaffirm the selections that they had made. And they have done that. Up until 5 o'clock last night, it seemed like our meeting was mainly going to be around affirming or not the recommendations of the panel. But then it came to our attention that an individual had brought a complaint against the oversight panel, and that official complaint under the Boulder Code will require an investigation. And so there was sort of a last minute kerfuffle around whether we wanted to look at the appointment process or do the investigation first. What we ultimately decided on was to punt for one more week and make that decision in a special meeting next week. It brought up a lot of, a whole variety of issues. We're talking about bias, what isn't bias, although we didn't get into that in detail in the meeting last night. I'm sure we will next week. And also brought forth this issue of, should we be allowing an unverified, sort of unvetted complaint against our community to really change what is on the agenda of the meeting. I mean, we are going to investigate this either way. And at the same time, having a complaint that, could just be spurious. I'm not saying that it is, but it, there's no way of us to really know at this point. Just opens up a huge can of worms and sets a terrible precedent in terms of allowing people who don't like what's on the agenda or feel like another week would help them rally, the people that they want to show up or send more emails to the council, more time to do so, and thus, take our schedule out of the control of council. And in many ways, this could be applied to boards and commissions as well.
It definitely did set a precedent because we did it. And so now, how are we going to determine in the future, in an objective way, when a complaint comes in, whether it's enough to stop a decision or postpone a decision? This feels like a way that anybody in the community can file a complaint and interfere with the work of council.
So stay tuned for next week, where we will be bringing up this conversation again. The rest of that meeting won't be a voting meeting, but we'll be looking at sort of staff's recommended plan and scope for the ADU section of our work plan. We will also be looking at the board and council liaison position and having a discussion about whether that is something we would like to start as a council. In our next regular meeting, 2 weeks from now, we will have the land use code, which is something we've been looking at. There was a section related to residential and office uses in industrial areas that wasn't quite where people wanted it to be when we were voting on it previously. And so there's been some adjustments to that. So we will have a public hearing and be discussing those adjustments, as well as site review criteria. Land use code talks about what you can do in particular zones in terms of, can you have a restaurant? Can you have office space? Can you have a house? Like just sort of what you're allowed to do on the property. And then site review criteria goes more towards how big or how many. So how many dwelling units, how many square feet of office space, and at what point does adding more of that trigger additional review. I'm excited to see what staff is bringing forward on that one. I think that's a really important issue in terms of making sure that the kind of development that we want to happen is allowed to happen, and that different types of development are getting the appropriate amounts of oversight.
One of the other things that is coming up is our council retreat that you and I have been involved in planning. And I think this will be an exciting opportunity for the community to learn a little bit more about what we are working on right now as council, and then within each of our city departments, because the work that we direct on council is really only about 20% of the work that is going on in the city. The rest of it, the other 80%, is coming from staff. And so we will be hearing directly from staff what kinds of things they are working on and what they're excited about in their departments. So I think it will be a really great opportunity for folks in the community to get more information about what's happening in our city. To highlight one other thing from our meeting last night, we started out with a discussion of our emergency alert system. And I just wanted to make sure folks know where to go to find more information on our emergency preparedness in the city. Also to sign up for alerts to make sure that you get them in case of some kind of natural disaster. The website is bouldercolorado.gov/guide/emergency-preparedness. There's a place to sign up for emergency alerts and just make sure that you are in the loop, and also some tips and things on how to be prepared for an emergency.
Another thing we talked about in the meeting were some adjustments to sales tax. So we have had a voter approved tax on vaping products. And there were just some modifications around, or clarifications around, what does and doesn't fall under that, as well as the elimination for taxes on menstrual and incontinence products, as well as diapers. Nicole, do you want to share with us some of the upcoming events in our community?
Sure, absolutely. So some of the things that I am excited about, we are about to head into Black History Month, and there are a lot of events going on that our NAACP branch is coordinating. One of the things that I got to see a preview of this last weekend was the Black Futures in Art, We're Not Just History event. There will be openings at various locations around Boulder County over the next couple of weeks. And I believe the art will be up through the month of February for Black History Month, but I highly encourage folks to go. The other interesting event that's coming up for Black History Month is that on February 19th at 3 o'clock at Mackey Auditorium, the Nashville African-American Wind Symphony is going to be putting on a free concert that is open to the public. So you do need to register for that event, but it is free. And if anyone saw the Fisk Jubilee Singers who came out last year for Black History Month, this is likely to be an extraordinary event in our community. So make sure to get out, support some of these artists and performers over the next month, and take advantage of all the amazing work and events that we have going on in our community.
Thanks, Nicole, for bringing attention to those. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Boulder Council Breakdown. Please stay tuned, reach out to us. It's so great to have you more involved, and let us know if there's any more information we could be bringing forward in these that would be helpful.